flag again. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic,
to the republic
which stands
which stands
one nation,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thanks everybody for joining us. We'll cut to the chase and try to be more linear with the agenda. Last month we were jumping all around. The first order of business is to approve the March minutes. Do we have a motion to approve them? There's a motion. I heard a second in there. Any need for discussion before we do this? No? All right. All in favor of approval? Aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right. Those meeting minutes. It's been a long day of depositions for me. Have been approved. Next item, Tammy, the community programming report.
Sure. So April is actually, to say it's a busy month is an understatement typically, and believe it or not, we have robust trends at the current time. So it's exciting, especially given where we were last year at this time, just trying to figure out, where our next move was and what we were going to do. So, I forwarded out the report. It was one of the later items. Hopefully you guys all had a chance to take a look through it. So we're obviously in the process of spring ramping up. We're living and breathing spring right now with a lot of programs about to take place and being planned. And of course, we're knee deep in summer planning at the same time. So it's always an interesting dynamic this time of year with a lot of moving parts. But some of the highlights really, we've seen our Soccer Shots program, which is our preschool soccer program, continue to grow. We have 204 participants right now spread across 16 sessions. So hopefully a lot of great soccer talent that's going to move through the soccer club and the school system at some point with all the participants there. And really the same right now with our preschool T-ball program. We've got 80 in that program over the course of the 4 sessions that we have that are going on. Plus we have a summer version actually of both of those programs that are going to ramp up at some point. So I know our participation sometimes declines a little bit from that standpoint once we get to summer. So we'll see how that goes, but very, very successful. We had a spring break soccer camp with World Cup Sports Academy that took place at Radnor Memorial Park. That was really successful. We had 31 participate. It was a colder day, I believe was our colder week, a little bit rainy, but they survived and a lot of success. We also, last week, we had a nature exploration and hike at Ithan Valley Park, actually one of the first programs we've ever done at that park. It was a sensory-based hike. Heather led it. We had a small group, only 6 registered, but was still very, very successwould and had a lot of fun with that. And a lot of the kids got a chance to experience Ithan Valley Park, whereas they maybe not would have had a chance at any other time. And especially a lot of the tree identifications that are in there from what's billed as one of the first arboretums to ever exist in the United States, which is pretty amazing. So they had a chance to go through and learn about all the different tree specimens as they ventured through the park. Our skateboard clinics continue to be really popular. We have 2 sessions sold out coming up here starting in the beginning of May. We have a 3rd session that's about to sell out. So still a lot of interest there. Obviously trying to balance the dynamic of the popularity of the skate park and then trying to run the programming as well. So the plan is that we are going to use a portion of the parking lot because a lot of the skills and things that the kids are working on at a beginner level really don't include a lot of the grind rails and the ramps and things like that yet at that point, although there will be time to kind of venture into the park, but some of that's going to take place on the flat ground just to, like I said, not only, be able to meet the needs there, but also the growing participation that happens in the skate park. We have a tennis program that actually just opened today. I understand the participation is growing for that as well. So very, very popular. It will take place over at the new courts at Warren Philippone. So we're excited about that. We're actually working with a new vendor who's delivering that. We're still working with our existing vendor, but he does some different things during the spring and summer. And we just wanted to try some new stuff. So there's going to be a lot of great things going on out there in addition to all the permitted usage. And again, it's always a balance trying to, manage everything, but increase now, of course, with growing participation numbers and then also growing rates of usage just by the public in the parks. We just to go back a little bit, we had a very successful St. Patrick's Day Pickleball Tournament. I don't think I had a chance to talk about this at our last meeting. I think our meeting came before that, but it was a whole lot of fun. And we had team names like the Lucky Charms and the Tequila Drinkers, but it was the Big Red who became the champion. But they had a lot of fun with it and a great day with the adults that showed up to play. Our pop-up egg hunts were a big success as well. We dropped eggs in 4 different parks. I mentioned last month at Harford, not Harford Park, sorry, Radnor Nature Park, close to Harford Park, Clemacrone Park, Petrie Park, and of course, Odoriccio Park. And it was very successful. The only downside of it is that a lot of folks left the eggshells behind. So we spent Saturday picking those up. So that was the only downside of it, but I think folks had a good time. They took some pictures, they sent them to us, we put them out on social media. That evening, we had our very first flashlight egg hunt along the Radnor Trail. We had about 75 teens run down the Radnor Trail in the dark, and they had a blast. So that was a lot of fun. Sean, I know your son participated. I remember seeing him there, so it was really a good time, and a first time event, program as well on the Renner Trail. So that was really exciting and something we're definitely going to consider doing again in the future. We had our first flag football tournament at Radnor Memorial Park on April 5th, which was the Monday after the holiday spring break, and we had 5 teams that registered. It was a lot of fun. It was a team group, and gave them something to do on their day off of school and got lots of exercise too. It was a lot of fun. It was a nice day. We also have the Renner Business Treasure Hunt, the Business and Organization Treasure Hunt going on. It's an opportunity for families and members of the public to get around to a lot of different sites and spy a coin that's located at various organizations and businesses locations. We have 25 of them participating. So far, we understand people are participating and enjoying it, and it's a great way to get out and see some of the organizations that folks might not be able to normally do, or patron a business maybe they normally wouldn't think of. So that's something that's up and running for the month of April, and certainly something that we would evaluate in the future as a possible program to bring back for another duration. We have an Orienteering Day coming up. Orienteering is an activity we haven't did since probably when I first got here back in the early 2000s. So we're excited to get that back on the map, no pun intended. The Delaware Valley Orienteering Association is working with us on that, and Tim Walsh, who was the same gentleman that worked with us years ago to run it. So on Saturday, that'll be going on. We have 70 signed up between 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock p.m. over at the Willows. So that should be fun. Fun activity, for folks to do, and hopefully the weather turns out nice. On Sunday, we actually have the Bike Rodeo. This is a biannual event that we do with the Scouts, a partnership event, and that'll be back. We have about 20 registered right now, but a lot of folks show up in person to that event. Next weekend is the Trout Derby, which is sold out with all the sessions. And then we have Arbor Day coming up on Friday the 30th. We're going to do it as a daytime event at 10 a.m. at Friends of Radnor Trails Park with the Radnor Conservancy. And of course, all of you are invited to attend if you're able and available. It is during the day, obviously at 10 a.m., but you're more than welcome to come along. And if you can't make that, the Willows Park Preserve is doing an Arboretum tree tour. Thanks to Mary and her group over there with the Willows Park Preserve. On Friday night, the 30th at 6:30 p.m. So we're looking forward to having that and that be successful as well. There is a pre-registration for that at the Willows Park Preserve's webpage. So as you can see, we have a lot going on. We're getting ready for summer. Our day camp the registration is very steady. We're nearing right now, like what would be our limit within Radnor Activity Center based on some of the health and safety guidelines for COVID that exists at this current time. I know we're hoping to work with the school district potentially for the use maybe of Radnor Middle School as a subsequent site, so that potentially camp could almost become, a campus at those two locations that, as you know, are right next to each other. So I know I've been bugging Bill Dolan a little bit here in the last couple weeks as our registration has been increasing, just to see if there's maybe any way we can start to get an answer on that, just because if our registration does start to topple, we just want to be able to accommodate folks and perhaps not have to turn them away. So that's the goal. And of course, our wizarding camp with 2 weeks that we do that in August over at Hilltop Preparatory School, that's sold out. It has a really long wait list. We're trying to find a way to accommodate the kids that are on that. And a lot of other activities are being planned, and summer events and things like that as well, like the Great American Backyard Campout, the Wiffle Ball Night at the Ballpark Classic that we do over at Enki. We're evaluating a couple summer concerts and a movie night and music day at Odorosio Park. So that's in development, which is something, I want to kind of talk to you guys a little bit later, maybe under the mountain biking topic, just in terms of Odorosio Park and some of the conversations that we had last month, and how potentially that event, if it comes to fruition, maybe could be a kickoff of sorts as we start to anticipate some community discussion surrounding Odorosio Park and the park improvements that we'd like to see there. So we've got a lot going on, and excited all the same, and hopefully the weather starts to warm up too, so we can get out and have some fun with lots of these things.
That's great, Tammy. Thanks a bunch. It's great to see the weather turning and more robust programming being possible, and hopefully with our pandemic that continues to cooperate, head in the right direction, where you don't have to continue to be so stinking creative on everything to try to provide the programming. But thanks, as always, for the report and for all the efforts on that. Is an exciting report. We'll turn now to the board reports. Commissioner Farhi is with us tonight. Any report, Commissioner, from the BOC?
Sure. Just two things. One quick thing. And Tammy, if you could tell everybody, because I saw this on the patch, it looks like you guys won, and pardon me as I'm reading this, the 2021 PRPS Excellence in Programming Award for your efforts in the pandemic for the Spooktacular Park and Trail Scavenger Hunt. I know that we talked about my 13-year-old doing God, I don't want to know what in the middle of the dark with Easter eggs hopped up on sugar. But I know he had a great time there. But can you tell us a little bit about this award? Because that's it's very impressive.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, I didn't want to pat ourselves on the back. So
well, you should, because this is why this is.
Please do.
So every year, PRPS, the Pennsylvania State Recreation and Park Society, has awards for excellence in programming, and this year's was obviously geared around different programs that communities were able to do and decided to do creatively, during the pandemic. And the event that we did over at the Willows with the scavenger hunt out on the Willows Trail, not only was a first time event for us really like out on the trail, but we also had a lot of very regimented steps and procedures in terms of people participating in it. For instance, we had a pre-registration. They were within very defined time blocks so that we knew, only a certain amount of people were going to show up at a time. And, obviously we had full COVID health and safety guidelines in place where folks were asked to social distance, wear masks, stay within their family groups when they arrive and as they go through a scavenger hunt. So this was a Halloween theme for us. So we got up early in the morning on that Sunday, and we put all kinds of Halloween decorations out on the trail, behind trees and up in the trees, and all over the place, and had a defined course, of course, for the participants to go through. And they had a check sheet that was kind of like a passport, where they had an opportunity to go through and pick out all the different things that were there, and gave a great opportunity to use your senses, and spy the different things in and around the trail, and also get some exercise. It's a great trail, and a lot of the folks who participated never had been out there before. They were with their young children, hiking as families. A lot of them dressed up for Halloween, which was pretty neat. And then we also had a maze over on the other side of the Willows near the picnic groves, where families were able to go through a giant maze we put up with stakes and caution tape. And they had to answer different types of questions about the history of Halloween and different things about Halloween as they navigated through the trail there. So it was a lot of fun, and we got to write about it and submit it, and obviously it was something that PRPS thought was worthy of an award. So they'll actually come to give us our award at some point when we can meet in person. So perhaps that'll happen at a Parks Board meeting or a Board of Commissioners meeting, one of the two. So it's exciting.
Yeah,
Keep us
congratulations
informed on that,
that.
Tammy. We'd all love to be there.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I'll keep you posted.
Awesome. The only other thing that I have, at least on my end, and unfortunately this is a Ward 7 issue, so I am much more attuned to those issues, is they're gonna put remove 3 trees, maybe 4 trees at Clemacron Park, and they kind of go up against the fence against the houses on Rockingham. I live on Rockingham. I don't live on the park side. So I guess we're losing more and more trees on that side. So I think a replanting of trees. Mary, are you still on Shade Tree or not? Mary?
You mean Claire?
There is.
Oh, Claire is. Mary,
Claire.
you're not. Okay, sorry, Claire, you are. Are you still on Shade Tree?
I
Okay,
am.
so that's something that I think the neighbors, I'm just letting you know, I think could be interested in. Some of those trees are super tall, and I know one tree fell on a house and did some major damage. So I don't know if we need any silver, silver maples or oaks that can get 50 feet tall, but something, what I like to say, the dogwood type of tree, which maybe can go to, 20 feet at its max, but it's not gonna, it could damage a house, but it's not gonna cause harm necessarily to anybody inside. And that's just my personal opinion, but I spoke to Steve Norsini about that. So if the people on Shade, if you want to bring that up on Shade Tree, or Tammy, if you see that there's there's a need there, then that's just
Sean, there is some information that has come to Shade Tree before our meeting, which is that this is happening in that park. So Shade Tree is aware of it, and
okay.
with the compensatory shade tree replacement, that would so the township would actually be putting them in. So
okay, yeah, it's just an observation.
Great.
I'm actually talking more as a resident than as a commissioner of just what I think but yeah, no, other than that, I don't, that's what I have. Tammy, as always, great job. And like the parks and the events, like the Easter egg hunts, like that's why I love being on this board, and that's why I love living in Radnor. So thank you.
Thank you. And also, Commissioner Farhi, I believe there are 13 trees that are going to go in.
I think, I'm pretty sure like all this was told to me. It's just, it was just put on the consent agenda at the consent agenda at the last board meeting, and I just want to bring that up. So in case the members of the parks don't know, it's kind of everything's flushed out once again here. So.
Thank you for that too, Sean.
And thank you, Claire, for letting me know what I should already know, but I appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Farhi. Director Dunn, any report from our school board?
Sure. For anybody who doesn't go anywhere near 476 and has no idea what the high school looks like lately, the tap trail is going in. They're making great progress. Tammy, if you would pass it along, I've heard really great things about how communicative the contractor has been there in terms of making sure, some of the area that they're tearing up gets used by our bus drivers, right? They park on our property and then they have to walk up to the transportation center. And so when that all got taken out, that creates a real risk for them, you know, at 5:30 in the morning when they're walking up there. And the contractor's been really good about notifying the district and keeping us on, keeping us aware of timing of different things and when they'd be there so we could, you know, work around that. So I really appreciate the great communication there. I will reach out. I'll mention to Bill Dolan that you're looking for him and mentioned it publicly. So that's the big thing that's going on.
He's always responsive.
No, I know. And the other big thing that's going on, facilities wise at the district, our infrastructure project should be kicked off this week, and we should start seeing some big activity. I think one of the first things that will happen, we'll start tearing up the field, the football field that's there, and the bleachers on Prevost Field will start coming down. Another thing for parents in the area who may not have noticed the email that came from the district, I think the deadline to respond may have passed, but it's still worth knowing. The district is actually going to be running, in conjunction with the local service provider, a vaccine clinic, COVID vaccination clinic for 16 and older students in the area. As I said, I think the deadline to register has closed, but you know, if you missed it and you live in the area, it's worth calling and seeing if you can get on a wait list maybe. I believe that's going to be in the next week or so. So hopefully that'll, you know, be a reassurance to parents, but also teachers who are in the district, that, you know, at least the 16 and older students will be able to get vaccinated. And for anybody who's worried, it is the Pfizer, which is the one that's approved. So there will be a follow-on vaccination clinic 3 weeks later. And also, I believe, you know, the high school facility is going to be used for some additional community vaccination clinics in the very near future as well. Look for more official notices on that. So thank you all.
Thank you. A couple of things I can at least share with you and the rest of the board. It's somewhat parks related. That is, the JV baseball field was redone and refenced in the last couple of weeks. The reports from the players, including my son, are that it is the best field that they play on this year. So that's great to see that. Certainly in need of it. It's great to see it. And the sodding on the freshman field, which is on the King of Prussia Road side, that's been a dormant field for, I guess, 2 years now. Looks like within days of being a baseball field. So it's great to see some more park space, baseball space. And I know that was long anticipated by the folks that play baseball, and they're happy to see it. It's turned out great.
Yeah, and I know some of that was you know, we had a change in facilities director, and then COVID, and we had some bad weather, and so some things that moved, and then COVID hit, and it just wasn't a priority you know, during COVID, obviously. And then, you know, again, bringing contractors back in, everybody knows how busy they are. So, but I'm glad to hear that it's meeting the need.
No one's going to remember the process. They're just going to remember the result at this point. So it's great. Thanks for your efforts and for everybody's efforts on that. Claire, you've given a little bit of a report, but I'm going to formally turn to you to give us a shade tree report, if you would, please.
Yes, thanks, Bill. Just to you know, follow up with a little bit that we've talked about already about Clement Chrome. Shade tree, some of the things that we're working on is we're going to be reviewing the ordinance again. Our focus, one of the focuses for this year is we're losing so much canopy, just as in the last couple of years, storms, the age of trees, the ash tree, that we're really pushing, as you can see, to replant and put trees back. And Shade Tree would like to partner a little bit more closely with parks to make sure we get some of those trees in the parks and what parks want to see. So that to Commissioner Fari, you know, we'd like to have some direction from Tammy and this board as to, you know, getting what kind of trees you want in there. And especially with trees that are coming down in the parks, you know, that are hazardous. Et cetera. So that's something that we're aware of on Shade Tree, that you know, we want to stay communicative on that topic. We're also working on a fall planting, like I don't know if you know how that works for you. We homeowners and places in the town, street trees, where we supply for $30 of, you know, a really nice, you know, 4-inch caliper tree. And it gets planted and for $35. So that's coming. And we also are working on some grants. and to put them, and some of those trees are going to go into parks. Oh, and one more thing, we are working on communication for new homeowners so that they understand a tree ordinance, because a lot of times you've moved
Great
into the
idea.
area and you don't know that these are and it's not meant to be punitive as much as it's meant to be helpful to get you some information on best ways to address trees that might be dead, that need to be taken down, and how to replace them.
That's a great idea. That's good to hear. On that note, guys, if I can jump in really quickly for Tammy and Claire, as you know, I actually live at the Willows in Skunk Hollow. I kind of live in a tree trunk there. I noticed that there, and Tammy, I don't think this is strictly your bailiwick, but it's in the Willows. There are 2 trees. They're both evergreens. I think one's a Norway spruce and one's I don't know, it might be a hemlock, that are listing seriously along Little Derby. If you go over there, you'll see they're like this, and they're right on the bank, which means there's a lot of erosion along the stream banks, and I'm afraid they look really bad. So one's on one side of I guess I'll call it the entrance, well, it's the exit road, but it's now the entrance and the exit road. One's on one side of that second bridge, and one's on the other side, sort of at the base of the lawn below the mansion. If you go over there, you'll see what I mean. But I think they're huge trees, both evergreens, and they look like they're the next big storm where the soil gets soggy, they're coming down. So someone might want to get out there and take a look.
Yeah, I can definitely have those looked at.
Yeah.
I might need to call you just to identify
Yeah.
exactly where those locations
Yeah, I'll
are.
give you a better description. I meant to send you an email, Tammy, but yeah. But
if you could do that, that'd be helpful. And then I'll share that with Rick right away, Rick Foster.
Okay.
And then what he can do is he can go take a look at them, and or John Hosbeck, and then we can decide how we want to act on those. But
Yeah,
if it's
it's a
eminent
shame,
that
but-
they're coming down, it sounds like they could be a safety issue. So
It's a
that's
safety
concerning.
issue. I mean, they're beautiful trees, but they are totally listing. I mean, they're like this. And again, being right along the bank of the creek, that, there's just not enough holding it in place. So I'm a little bit worried that, someone in the park could get hurt. So
Yeah, we definitely want to address it right away.
yeah.
Okay, thanks, Claire and Mary. It dovetails into something I think I put on the agenda, old business, and this gives an opportunity to talk about it. Each of us have, or I think most of us have signed up to be stewards of various parks. It's probably a good time of the year to make an effort to get to the parks. I know Tammy has shared, at least with Mary and I, some issues residents have spotted, and that's great that we're getting that input. We have tried historically to seem to focus on emergent issues that are needed in the parks, maybe some middle term and then some long-term thoughts folks might have. So I'm going to circulate the spreadsheet with the parks that we all chose, and maybe if we could over the next month or so, make an effort if you can to get out there, take a look, see what you might come in contact with, whether it be hazards like Mary's discussing or just some things that might need some TLC and some long-term thoughts. And fill it in the spreadsheet, send it back to me, and I can share that with the larger group. That would be a great thing to do if folks are able to do it. It's a good time of year to do it. So, and it gives us an excuse to get outside, which we all desperately want to do. All righty. Tammy, going to kick it back to you for project update, please.
So just to kind of go revisit a couple topics from last month. So Emlyn Tunnel and the SEPTA bridge structure removals project is behind us, finally. And it's very exciting to just put that one behind us. It's been a year and a half in the making, believe it or not, and a lot of baby steps along the way. So we're working with SEPTA right now on the replacement of the fence. We're trying to get dates and information on that, as well as the tree replacements for the trees that had to come down initially before the structures were removed. So definitely happy to have that one behind us, and just looking forward to continuing to move on with improvements at the park there that go along with that. Fenimore Woods is another one. Project continues to move. Last month I had let you guys know we had received a grant from the Keystone Communities program with the Dced in the amount of $50,000. Just yesterday, we submitted the DCNR C2P2 grant, which is a big community conservation recreation program grant that happens annually on behalf of the DCNR. So that was a $250,000 grant. This was the one that our consultants were working with us to apply and put detail together for. A lot of it ties in with the stormwater management plan throughout the park, the key needs with the ADA and the accessibility and things of that nature. So definitely fingers crossed on that one. That's a huge one. We're also now starting to work on another Dced Greenways grant, which I know the application deadline is at the end of May. I believe the grant request amount is going to be somewhere around, I know it's going to be upwards of 125,000, maybe more. We're still evaluating some of the guidance and information that we received from the representative of DCED. So those are exciting. And then obviously, you know, we continue to look at other options and opportunities. You know, one of the great things about having, you know, an almost shovel ready project is that, you know, these grants become more realistic. With that, you know, we are continuing to refine the project. I think I had mentioned to you before, we had some slight redesign efforts that had occurred in and around the pavilion and playground area, and then the lower portion of the parking lot area. We're still waiting on those plans to take a look at them. As soon as we have a chance to review them internally, as I had mentioned, I'm going to bring those back to you guys to see one last time before the project goes to bid. But we're really excited. I really can't say enough how much I still continue to hear from folks, how tired and deteriorated the park looks, and folks are excited for change. One thing I will say is that there is there's the bridge, the culvert that is just there at the bottom of the pond area, and then you have the spillway. I don't know, I refer to it as the weir. That comes out over there next to the pond where you come across the little bridge, which is going to be replaced, the footbridge that actually takes you from the lower lot to the pond. There's severe cracking happening in that weir, and there's also sinking happening on that little culvert area and that bridge that goes over Shimoni, where Shimoni Road kind of cuts in there at Paul. So that's a project I know Steve Norsini is looking more heartily into. We didn't realize how failing some of that area is starting to deteriorate and look. So he's going to be working with one of the township stormwater management consultants, Meliora, to see what we need to do to improve that area, reshape, rechannel some of the water that's coming in and through that area. So I just want to acknowledge it because I'm not sure whose park that is. But if you're down there, and I'd be happy to meet with you. I'm not sure who has Fenimore. Or are we reassigning? Sarah? Okay. I'd be happy to meet with you at some point if you wanted to and go down, or any of the board members for that matter, to take a look at it. No,
that'd be great. I actually am planning to be there on Sunday, but I'm not asking you to come on Sunday. So I was like, oh, good. I'm going to be right up to date on Bill's assignment. But yeah, no, I'd be happy to. I'll reach out to you, Tammy, about going over there to look at it. I'd appreciate that.
Okay. Well, ironically, I am here on Sunday for the bike rodeo. So I might be able to pull away from that depending.
Okay. Yeah, I'll send you my cell phone number, and if you're available and we can talk over, that'd be great.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
So we just want to recognize, the issue that seems to be mounting there in that area. And also that any of the final stages of design for the Fenimore project that is impacted there, where that bridge comes over and the pathway goes around, consideration will be given concurrent to what we're expecting on that end. Obviously there's pieces and parts to the project there that we don't know, but it also won't limit or hinder the comprehensive project that we have going right now with the park renovations. That's been, obviously approved by both this board and the Board of Commissioners. So that will continue to move, but also just mindful of any construction that would go on in and around that area in the future, given sort of what I'll refer to as a new dynamic that's going on in and around that area. So we talked about the TAP trail a little bit, and the Harford Park Trail is another one that is going through its punch list right now. So that should be opening soon. And then any of the tree planting and remaining stormwater management pieces are going to be completed there. I had a meeting with the Radnor Conservancy, and we talked about the meadow project. So there was a meadowization project, pilot project that occurred back in, I think, 2016, that members of the EAC and the Conservancy came to this board on regarding establishing the meadowization project, the pilot project over at the Skunk Hollow Farm, just above the farm. And they're looking to expand that project. So we had a conversation about that and how that will look, and it's going to move forward. So we're excited about it, as well as some of the educational pieces that are being planned in and around it, and establishing some signage and information. And the Conservancy, I know, wants to get started on having more educational sessions with members of the community on mowing alternatives, lawn alternatives and things like that. So they're moving ahead with that. And also we talked a little bit about the possibility of establishing a project between the township and the Conservancy that would basically establish like a pilot project to clear invasives and vines and things from a certain identified section of a park, where we could kind of sit there and look at like a before and then an after picture based on a volunteer group and their efforts and what that could lead to. So the Conservancy is working with us to take that on and lead that, as well as coordinate an effort that we would work together, obviously, to advertise, recruit, things like that, and educate. So I'm not sure if there were any other specific questions anyone had on some of the other park things. I know, well, one other thing, I guess we talked about the sliding boards last month pretty extensively. Those are in manufacturing right now. So those are the slides that have to be replaced over at Beau Connor Playground and Odoricio Playground. So they had to be developed, obviously, to be able to meet the needs of those older playgrounds. So we are learning that sometime by the end of the month, those should ship. And then at that point, we'll have to just figure out what the date is going to be with our contractor to have them installed. So that's just a brief update there, and we'll see how that goes. I take dates like that with a grain of salt, so we'll keep our fingers crossed.
Hey,
Tammy, I
Tammy,
was just going to suggest on the Radnor Conservancy pilot. I think that sounds like a great idea, and it sounds like a great service project for some high school students, or even really enterprising middle school students. So I'm happy to mention it, but certainly I'll see if I can run through the list of clubs and see if there's clearly some kids who are have that specific type of interest. But hopefully that's something we can get you some young volunteers for.
Yeah, that would be great to have all that young energy.
Tammy, how big of an expansion of the area? I mean, I know since I'm in Skunk Hollow Garden, and I know where that little square is. How big of an expansion are they talking about?
So if you walk behind where the meadow is established right now, where it doesn't actually abut up against the mulch area, where the mulch area begins. Yeah, it would basically just go straight back to where it would, go right up against and abut. So it's probably would double the size.
Double the size. Yeah, that's what it sounds like. That's great.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. And, we're excited to work with them on it. And like I mentioned, develop the signage and information too, so folks know what's going on as well.
hey, Tammy, it's not directly a park issue, but do you happen to know the timing on the bridge on Darby Paley Road near the Willows, and when that's going to be opened up?
December 2020. It was supposed to open up. I don't have an update, Chris. I just know that it's a project that's dragging on, and I understood is going to be done sometime in the spring now.
I drove by there today, and it actually looks really close to finished. I mean, the bridge is all surfaced. It really looks ready to go. So I'm sure they've got some inspections, and there may be delays getting through that, but I would hope it's any day now.
Yeah,
and I joke.
They were paving it the other day, and it looked. I actually thought that maybe today it was going to be open. It wasn't.
I know it was slated for sometime in the spring after the crazy winter that we had. I know that caused a lot of delays, and obviously materials and supplies and things like that had become an issue as well.
Chris, thank you for asking Tammy and not me. I appreciate that. Just kidding, Tammy. Thanks.
Any more questions on projects while we have the floor open on that one? All right, going to move on to the agenda to our dogs in the parks item. And one of the things that I'm going to open up for discussion, one of the things I was thinking of is just sort of where we're going with this as a process. And I think at the end of whatever process we're in, we're going to get to a point where we're either going to decide to make a recommendation or not. Before we get there, working backwards, I think we're going to want to get some resident and public input. I guess my question for the group is, what do we want to do from where we stand now to when we get to the public input section? And thought I have, and I'll certainly open the floor up in a second, was if we just open it up and have people coming in, I'm not sure that's going to be the most productive way. It might be helpful for us to sort of kick around what possibilities we might have in terms of potential action. Not that we're adopting or advocating them, but if we're looking to make a possible recommendation on a change in an ordinance, hey, here's option A, B, or C. And if we're looking to do other things with designations of parks for dogs or not dogs, or altering what's in existence, it might not be a bad idea to try to move towards, I don't say a menu, but just something with a little bit more bones on it to drive that discussion so we can get,
so to speak,
the decision point. Yeah, sorry. So I don't know what I don't mean to sidetrack the discussion entirely on a process comment, but it was something I thought of that I know we've had some really nice discussions, but I think we're aiming to get this somewhere or decide we're not taking it anywhere. And I certainly welcome input on what we as a group think is the best way to proceed down that path.
Bill, I'm thinking that maybe it helps get the ball rolling if we, as a group, come up with some, not necessarily the board recommendations, but a list of possibilities. Here's an idea. Here's an idea. Or, identify the problem, obviously, and then here's a possible solution. Here's a possible solution. So that sometimes when people when it's a little more concrete for people, they react to it a little bit better. Because I was thinking the same thing today. It's like, we need public input, but in this era of Zoom calls, we don't have people showing up and pounding the desk and stuff like that. We don't get the kind of input that we used to get. So we sort of need to really elicit it. And we really do need the public's input. We really do need to hear from them on what they feel and why they feel it and how strongly they feel it. We can guess, but we really need to hear it. So anything that gives them something to react to or respond to without making it appear that we're going in that direction, definitely, I think would be helpful.
Do we get any, I haven't, since we've been on Zoom, obviously people haven't been coming to the meetings. Do we get public comment at all, Tammy, that comes to you? Has it been going to the commissioners at all? Or people are just, they're happy the parks are open, maybe?
No, we haven't gotten any requests to attend or make public comment. I think we had the resident attend the night we talked about the mountain bike trail.
Right.
Her name's escaping me. I know she lives right over by Odoricio. And she joined in.
Susie Brown?
No, it wasn't Susie. It was a resident.
It was a neighbor who lives right by the park.
Oh, Jackie
Baver. That's
yes.
it. Her name was on the tip of my tongue. So she attended and came in, and we allowed her obviously to speak, and we had discussion, but there hasn't been any feedback that I've gotten or Ian has gotten. Otherwise he shares it with me.
I think I think a lot of people have so many things on their mind right now that this is not high on their list. But I think we could, but it has to be, we can't proceed without their input. We absolutely need to hear from them. So whatever we can do to make it more tangible for them or give them a little more structure, I think would be helpful.
So what I would suggest, this is how I do things, and I don't want to put words in another commissioner's mouth, but I think the best thing to do would maybe to reach out to Commissioner Abel, because this is his ward, and if you could do something outdoors where you have all the dog owners there, and maybe some of the residents that are affected that border Maybe they love the dogs, maybe, and they cut through to use the park, and maybe they don't want dogs on their property. And at least getting their opinions, because those are the biggest stakeholders to it. That's kind of at least where I would start. And then Tammy, you could relay some of that information back to this board. They could use that information, because we may be way off. We may, we're just the same 7-10 people that are just discussing the same things over and over. So I think that maybe reaching out to Commissioner Abel to see if that's something he's comfortable doing, getting different opinions from the residents and the stakeholders, as well as you, Mary, reaching out to the Willows board as well. And then you have the major stakeholders. I can give you my opinion all day long, but I don't use the park and I don't border the park, and I'm kind of the wrong one to ask in that regard. I have an opinion, but I think those that live near or use the park more are going to have, should have a little bit more weight to it. That's my opinion, and I have my own opinion. I'm just trying to stay neutral to move the process forward.
Sure, and I think it's a helpful suggestion, Commissioner. The other item, which might be a little bit broader, is I think we started this process a little bit when Mary did the review of the various local ordinances, and we did a compare and contrast, and that I think would be a more global thing. And that's, like, I guess one of the reasons I brought up the topic was to see where we want to put our focus. It's not that we can't do both. I think we can have a focus on one particular park and its usage, and also an ordinance review, I'll say, but that's a good place as for the local issue. For the global issue, I don't know what our appetite is, and that might be something. It's just a menu to form a discussion, and maybe that gets nowhere with public. Maybe nobody wants to do anything with it. But I thought there were some very good and interesting points Mary raised in that review, of at least worthy of looking at to bring it into a modern era and make sure it conforms with what we want it used to be.
We really need, people really need to know that we are considering. I mean, I don't know how many people are paying attention to these or watching them after the fact or whatever, but people need to know it's on our agenda, that we are thinking about it. That's one. So we need that outreach, that publicity, and then we really need to solicit their opinion. And I would love an outdoor forum somewhere. Not even just I almost said Region 6, not even just the 6th Ward, but anybody in the township who uses the dog park, because that's everybody. But the first thing is to let them know that we're thinking about it, and then let them know that here are some options, and get them thinking about it, and then get them together, and could be a lively little meeting. But we need to hear it.
I have a couple questions.
So go ahead, Chris.
If I could, and I apologize because I missed last month, so I missed some of the conversation about it last month. So I guess my two questions are, number one, and Mary, I think you've made a great point that the problems are people leave their waste behind, dogs are unleashed and can jump on people and or attack other dogs, etc. I don't know if there's any damage being done in our parks. So are we getting formal complaints? Is there a lot of complaints coming in from the public about the dog issues? Is my first question. And then my second question is, Tammy, I think you use, and I don't use social media, but I think you use social media pretty extensively to publicize things that you do with programming and things like that. Couldn't the social media also be used to talk about issues like dogs and waste being left behind and problems like that? And every twice a month or once a month, send something out that would go across social media and just remind people to encourage themselves and their families to be better stewards with dogs and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely do that. We've put stuff out like that in the past before. And not to sound antiquated, but we did it on paper, and we did it, in our brochure that we used to publish and send out, and then of course send out electronically. I know social media has, increased presence now. I certainly wouldn't use it to engage anybody on any topics. I would use it as a method to inform and remind. So,
right.
For instance, the pictures that Mary shared with us today, that
They're beautiful.
they were beautiful. And, and that's a problem township wide. It really is. It's something that happens in neighborhoods and parks and communities, all over. So that definitely would be an option to remind people about that. I'm not sure that we would still reach the people that decide to do that. But, it's definitely I'll call it like an initiative, of sorts, or a public service announcement that we could definitely put out, and reminding people. But I guess where I'm a little unclear is I'm not sure how we would do that with regards to the dogs, because our policy right now, our code isn't clear. So, if I put out a public service message that tells reminds people to keep their dog under control, I feel like it's still going to go back to the same ideology of people think their dog's under control when it's 100 yards away
Yes.
and running up
Right.
on, a patron who's, in the park, a hiker or something who's in the park. So I think it will be a useful tool when we decide to have a meeting and what that meeting will entail. Like, that's certainly a platform, where we'll try and circulate what we're talking about right now. So, we sit here and we decide, we have these certain, this certain outline of objectives that, we want to discuss in a public meeting. And then we set a date, we set a time, whether it's it's one of our meetings here or it's some other type of meeting setting. It's something we will definitely put out and market very heavily. And I would work with Molly, our public information officer, as well, to help us reach folks. I'm not sure if that answers your question, Chris, or where you were going.
No, I was just, as I said, there was a two-part question about the social media part. Again, I'm not that familiar with it, but I would think the more times people hear that there's been some issues and they see pictures of people leaving trash behind, maybe it just starts a conversation in the community a little bit, and it seems to be pretty effective. I know. Having a married daughter in the community, she gets all her information on social media. So that was just an idea from that standpoint. And then with regard to some of the problems, are we getting formal complaints? And how many of them? How frequently? How big is the problem from that standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't have anything other than anecdotal information to share in the last, I would say, year or so. But I certainly could, get with the police department and see what they have. Usually they bring those to my attention when that happens. But most of the information that I receive is, a brief incident report. There might have been one or two of those in the last year to 2 years. Maybe there's a few more that they maybe just didn't share with me. But as far as like a phone call to our department to discuss a dog issue directly about the Willows. So, we've had complaints about other parks.
Mm-hmm.
Cowan has been a big one in the recent months, but that was more due to, it wasn't due to aggressive dogs or anything like that. It was due to owners not cleaning up. And it's also a park that doesn't permit dogs. So, the message is pretty clear there. But I can certainly do a little research and see, what that looks like, at least from a formal complaint, incident report that's been reported to our police department.
Yeah, I was just curious. Thank you.
Tammy, yeah, or actually, Bill, I like Bill's idea of a menu of options because I can think of a whole bunch of things that can be done and reviewing and revising the existing ordinances is one of them, but there are other things as well, signage and stuff. I think, I don't know who follows us on social media. If it's just Radnor people, then it doesn't reach necessarily the people who I suspect are also using the park there, which is Newtown Township people. But signage right there at the site would be more helpful too. I was up there yesterday, or not yesterday, today actually, to see what kind of signage we do have, and all it says, I meant to send you this picture too, but I was sending you so many pictures I stopped. It just says no dogs except on trails. It doesn't say anything about like the ordinance language about keeping them under control, which of course is vague and not particularly helpful anyway, but we don't even have that. And that's it. And then the other end of the trail by Sawmill has nothing. So in defense of the dog owners, they're not getting a whole lot of guidance on what they can and can't do other than what seems to be the practice and what they seem to be getting away with. There's
I
not
think
a
it's
day
pretty well understood. We expect them to clean up after their dogs.
Oh, that just blows me. I saw one bag. Well, I had more graphic photos, which I saved you guys from, but I saw
Thank you.
one bag that was tied to a tree limb. I mean, they went to that trouble.
Well, no,
But-
so actually I will tell you, there are people who do this. They will tie it somewhere because they expect to come back. So rather than carry it for the next hour and a half while they're walking through the park, especially if it happens like right as they're entering, they will put it somewhere and it's up there actually. Now, whether or not they remembered to come back for it. But I know I've seen people do that. I've been with neighbors who were, oh, I'm going to leave that here and get it on the way back. So if it was tied up high, that might have been genuinely.
I mean, it gets
But-
crazy. I was just over
Yeah.
there today and I mean, there were people who didn't even go to, I mean, a lot of people didn't even go to the trouble, obviously did not even go to the trouble of putting it in a bag. So.
And
so
that's a
we've got the
shame.
problem In addition to the dogs running loose and jumping on people and me hanging onto trees for dear life so I don't get knocked into Derby Creek. And I think people don't necessarily report it unless like a dog gets injured or a person gets injured, because it's one of those things where you grumble at the person who's, being rude and, you go on your way. But I mean, I'm over there enough to know, I mean, it happens all the time. So,
I wonder if
Yeah,
it's worth, at some of our parks, I know we have this at Emlyn Tunnel, there, we have like a post with a sign that says, we expect you to clean up after your dog and make some bags available. And there's a little trash can there. And maybe if, even if we aren't going to give them bags, I think just a sign that says it is expected that you will do this. I mean, I think it's obvious. I don't own a dog and I think it's obvious. But dog owners know that. And I think.
oh yeah, this is abusive. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And again, I want to underscore that I don't know what the percentage is, but most people are fine. Most people have their dogs leashed. Most people, I see them carrying their little bags of what with them. But there's a sufficient percentage of, non-compliers or whatever that don't, and it's enough that it causes a problem. Anyway, but I do think there's a whole variety of ways to address it. And so I like the term menu because it's sort of all different.
So
I also-
okay, go ahead, Sarah.
No, last thing, in terms of notifying the public about a conversation like this, I think that social media has its place, but if and when we have a date that we want to discuss this, if we could 2 weeks out, put a notice in the parks. It sounds,
Yeah.
we're getting kind of back and forth. I mean, I know the issue is coming up primarily at the Willows, but it sounds like you're also talking about all the parks. So to the extent we going to do this, I think you put the notice in the parks where people are. And if you give them, if it's there for a week or two, most people, especially if they're going there with a dog or they're regularly enough, that they'll see it. And people who use it regularly enough and are frustrated by the dogs will see it and also know to come. So I think you'd reach the people who are most affected by it.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sean.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
We would do that.
So just a couple observations from all this. So I will say, Mary, I think each park needs to have different rules.
That's very possible.
Yeah, I mean, the basic rules are going to be the same. As Sarah said, if your dog goes to the bathroom, you need to pick it up. Now, how much we deviate from there depends. Is the area gated or is it not gated? Touching on what Chris said, social media is great. I know that I follow the Willows on Instagram, and I follow them as well on I think I follow them as well on my Facebook page. So I think that if the Willows, and Mary, if you can, whoever's doing your social media there, every now and again can make mention, that's one thing. Then I think you need to have a spin-off on that, probably prior to doing the meeting. And I don't know if that's something that Radnor Recreation should do, or the Willow, like kind of a hybrid should do, or like an individual should do with, like, I'm not saying me, but like a citizen should do that loves dogs, and then can kind of hand that over. But have a like Friends of the Willows dog park, so you can talk about that. So there's a specific page just for those people, because people, they may not care about the Willows, but they're going to want to see which one of their friends are taking their dogs to the dog park so they can meet up with them, because it's just as much social for the parents or for the dog owners as it is for the dog. So I think that if you really just, take it down one more layer where you may have dog friends of Hartford Park. And I know these people form cliques and they love their dogs, and then they want to say, hey, let's go to Mexico and we're going to take our dogs. And I'm like, okay, I don't know. So I think that and I don't know who should run those pages, but then you'll really hit those people that really have an interest in the dogs, and then you can really get that out. And I don't know if I mentioned it before, but I am very much against cameras. I don't like security cameras at all, but we need to protect our property. And as long as the camera is on what I say government property, and this is property of the township, we may or may not have cameras at Emlyn Tunnel. I know that we were talking about them, and cameras at Clemacrone. But having, if we have a fenced in area and you have a camera there of just that fenced in area, I think, I don't like it, but I think it keeps everybody honest. So these are my ideas. So I don't, I don't want to steer. The last thing I ever want to do is steer this board in any one direction. I just want to throw enough stuff against the wall. So if something sticks that you like, you can go with it. If they're not what this board wants, then, keep moving on. Hopefully we'll find some good ideas.
Anyone else with any comments on the topic? Bill?
Is it possible that we, as a group or a quorum, for instance, could meet some weekend day and sort of walk the grounds together and really identify the problem and the circumstances, and just sort of all have a good feel? Because I'm not familiar with the Willows enough to even comment about the vastness, where this is all taking place, or is it, specific locations that are consistent? And I just thought perhaps we could meet there one day for coffee and sort of take a walk and get a feel for it. That's my initial thought.
And
I'm
hi
here.
guys. I don't know if you guys can see me or hear me. I'm at a baseball practice where it's freezing out, so that's why I've been so quiet. But I will say that, and Tammy knows this, I'm like the Clemacrone, wannabe police park person. But I was there past couple days just observing, and there are a ton of dogs at Clemacrone. Some leashed, some not leashed. Lots of little kids. So when it's the Willows and I've been there, it's like a little bit different, but Clemacrone has a lot of little kids at it. So I just say to everybody I'm trying to prevent something happening. You know what I mean? That's the last thing we need at that park. Cause I also believe that we have a lot of people that go there that aren't from around.
Yeah.
Is what I kind of gathered. And I get it. It's a popular place. It's a great park. But anyway, I'm just putting that out that just this week, I probably saw 8 dogs there at one time, some of them leashed. And most people are fine with it, right? But I'm just giving everybody a heads up that I don't believe we're allowed to have dogs there, right? I follow those laws very closely. I have a dog, and we don't even go there, and I live a block from there. So
yeah, no, they're not permitted there. And actually, that reminds me of something I can do on my end to help that situation, and that's notify all of our program users there. Not only our permitted usage, but the programs we run there as well. Because some of those folks do come from, they're not right in from Radnor, but they're from, around Radnor, and remind them that, that is a dogs not permitted park. So we can do our part by making sure that that's a routine communication that we put out. Because I haven't seen dogs there. I was there a couple of weekends, and I can only count maybe one time since the park reopened that I saw a dog there. And it's definitely something we want to avoid of an issue happening there. Not to mention, it isn't the policy.
And I was there at lunchtime, Tammy. So I work from home, and I'll go there during the week at lunch. That's when, and you're working too, right? But that's was there today. I was there yesterday, because when the boys are back to school now, thank you very much. sometimes I just go there and I eat my lunch there and I work from there actually, because it's peaceful, right? But today I was like, and people are like all walking around and I'm like thinking like it says it on the sign. So anyway, just a heads up about that. But if there's anything I can do to help, I'll try to track some things too. Just to kind of give some ideas. So it's not just me like, talking of just some stories. I'll see if I can engage anything. I would love to know though, if the folks that are bringing dogs there during the week, if they're from Radnor. I'm just curious. I don't think they are, but just my thoughts. So if you need me to do anything else, let me know. I'm here. It's a little cold out. So, I look like a weather person to you guys because I'm like, hey,
You do.
it's 32 degrees here and it's
So tomorrow-
freezing. So, and my nose is cold and actually the mask helps. So, but anyway, thank you guys. I'll go back on my little hut. So I'll mute.
Thanks, Christina. Anyone else with some comments before we wrap this topic up?
I'm, I don't have like William said, I'm not really a dog person, but I saw the sign out there. It says no dogs allowed in Arterisio Park. And right down the street, you have a dog park down there. And there have been a numerous amount of times where you see people, I think somebody else also said it, you're walking through the park to get to the dog park. And it just clearly says right there on the sign, no dogs allowed. There are no words for me. I mean, because there's a sign right there and there are two of them right there. And the guy's walking right past the sign. So I know he sees them just like I do. And I just can't for the life of me figure out why do they continually do it. I mean, it comes from our top of the street down, they'll walk through the park and they won't even bother going to the dog park. They'll just walk around and come right back up the street again. So it's, to me, I just don't get it. And some people have pointed out to me and some of the people in the neighborhood are like, well, they're not supposed to be in the dark in the park. But I tell them, look, I'm only on the board. I can only take your suggestion to them, but I don't know what else to do. So I like the idea of being somewhere central there where you just have the conversation outright.
Yeah.
Thanks, Howard. I think you raise a point, which is I think there's been a focus on this issue of the dogs and dog owners and folks who want to use with dogs. The prevalence of them in parks which are designated as non-dog parks also raises the issue with folks who maybe don't want to be crossing paths with dogs. And we have enough parks in the township where various uses of our parks can be made available for folks. So I think it raises an issue. But to move on, let's say somebody had something else. I think what I'll try to do, maybe I'll send out, you get a Word document going or something with some bullet points, just to sort of start the process of kicking around ideas about a menu that as I put it. I like Bill's idea as well. And I know Mary is the one who, you said it, you live in a tree there. So you would be our best guide to help really draw attention to that specific park. And I'm happy to join in on a meeting as well. And I don't know if you want to throw out a date or something, Mary, not this moment, but and try to pull that off and we can circulate among an email among our bunch. That might be the best way to go.
Mary, would you be so kind as to send the different policies from different townships? I know you had Lower Merion and another, if we could look at a couple just to see and compare it to ours, just to update. I mean, if you could circulate that, I'd be happy to look at that.
Bill, do you have the Barks in the Park thing that I sent out whenever that was a couple months ago? Because that had all of them. And
that's what I'm asking. Would you please send that to me again, or could I access that? Thank you.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
And just, Mary, if you're going to push the button once, maybe just circulate that to the.
I'll just recirculate it.
Recirculate. That way, if folks have a difficulty laying their fingers on it, then that's something they'll have.
Yeah, I know, it's probably buried.
I guess it strikes me in terms of just sort of the pecking order of things. I think you need to decide whether we ultimately recommend or not a formal change of the rules. And then it seems to be one undercurrent that runs throughout this is perhaps a lack of clarity on the rules, or at least a communication issue, which is something that we have only so much we can do on that, but that seems to be maybe a larger issue. But I think it's sort of, we need to be able to communicate what it is we think the rules should be and make a recommendation or not to BOC. And then from there, the flow needs to happen. But I'll take a stab with just getting something. I'll let Mary circulate the barks and the parks, and then I'll just do bullet points folks can add in, and that might at least give us some kind of skeleton or something.
Yeah, something to react to.
Discussion. And then we can have something that when we're talking and getting up to a point where we're going to have folks involved, hey, here's some of the things we're looking at, and here's some bullet points. Let us know what you think, and that maybe would make it more than, hey, my dog ran into this dog, or I'm tired of stepping on the ways, or I love dogs everywhere, and these anecdotes, which I'm certainly we're happy to listen to, but I don't know that they advance the discussion incredibly far of where we want to go with it.
If I may, real quick,
Please,
one of the things we can do on our end too is, first of all, we can make sure that, the message of the dog defecation, whether it's hung in a bag on a tree or it's just laid there, we can start to, define, what that is and what that looks like to the public a little bit more clearly in terms of what our expectations are. So we can do that through social media posts. We can do that through the website. We can try and do it through some other means. I would like to, at some point, understand if throughout the Willows and Skunk Hollow, if there are additional locations where there needs to be trash cans that are mounted on the pole with the dog bags, like we have at Harford, like we have at Friends of Renner Trails. We can certainly put those up in additional ones, and maybe that will help.
I think that'll help the waste issue.
Sign. Now, I would keep the same signs that we have that shows the man with his leash and he has his dog, only because I think it visually sends the right message, even though it's not like we don't require a leash. And then it has the note on it about, please clean up. So if we could identify locations, and we'll do that as well on our end, I'll have the park staff maybe make some suggestions there too. To where we can add some of those. I mean, that's a relatively small expense, and we can get those distributed in more locations. So, I recognize that can help mitigate that issue. As far as the behavior, and it's, so it's really a behavioral issue, right? So people think they can get away with walking their dogs through the park or letting the dogs come, in the park each night to take them for a walk and do whatever they do. It's a behavioral thing, and it's changing the behavior. And if people know there's no repercussion and they've done it for years and they've seen others do it, there's really no incentive to do anything differently, whether there's a sign or there's, anything other than enforcement, really. So I just, obviously we're going to have to think a lot more about what that's going to look like and what those options are. But I would be careful on our end at this point, like the township's end, to advertise or put out anything about what we expect people to do in terms of their dogs on a leash, not on a leash, all of that, because if it changes, I wouldn't want to have to come back and now, change a message and change a behavior again. So those are a couple of things that we could do. And just lastly, my suggestion would be is to have the public meeting as a Parks Board led meeting, since this has been the genesis for the entire conversation. Doesn't mean that can't happen publicly in a park. We can, define a date of one of our meetings, in May or June or July or whenever, and do it physically in the park as one of our meetings. But I would keep it focused around this group with your leadership.
So, Bill, I know you want to move on, but can I just make one quick question? Tammy, I think that's a great idea. We should have a field trip at the Willows, and then Bill Quinn, that would satisfy your need there as well. So yeah, so each, so there's I guess there are dogs at Emlyn Canal. So if someone came to me, again, I think the point person should be that commissioner in that ward. But the question, I think this is kind of like the chicken or the egg, and this is what's holding us up. It's like a chicken or the egg, is do we make suggestions to the neighbors and the dog owners, or do we have them make suggestions to us? And there's pros and cons with each, and I think that should be the question that we ask and then we have a meeting with them, asking them for ideas, or we have a meeting explaining what we think as a board. And as you know, and you were appointed to make those decisions and to at least, lead. So I don't know, that's kind of how I look at it. I think it's like a chicken or the egg. We need to decide how we bring this to the, how we initially bring this to the public, and then it should all fall into place. That's the last thing I'll say about this.
I appreciate that. I think one of the things I was hoping to maybe avoid or make it, I'm sure more interactive is the right way to put it, but was to avoid that chicken egg dichotomy. I think if it's a menu and hey, this is try to guide a discussion, at the end of the day, I think we're going to take things under advisement and we'll discharge the duties we have, either to say, here's our recommendation, or we're going to pass on it. But we do want that input. And I think we say, hey, here's what we're thinking about. That might be a way to at least guide a discussion so folks can say, I don't want that. And we can take that input for what it's worth, or I do want that. So
yeah, I agree with you, Bill. And I just think we have to be very clear up front that these are just some ideas. This is not necessarily what we're recommending.
Yeah, and that's
to get the conversation going.
But the problem with that is, and I've done these town halls where you get the people that are most fired up and passionate about it, and there's 3 of them and they all agree and they want the most, we want, free reign with dogs and trash can, and you're like, we can't do this. And then you're like, now you're trying to manage the expectations for these 5 people because they're going to say that they represent everybody else. Like it's a chicken or the egg, or it's a catch-22. I'm trying to be the optimist here. But these are the things that, again, my personal opinion, and when I do this is I kind of have the menu set and say, we can do this. These are the pros and cons. But I think, again, if we ask 12 different people, we're going to get 12 different responses. And some of them may just be, you're not going to be able to do. So I am done. I'm going to zip it. And
it's all good. We're here to have the discussion. Anyone else on dogs? All right. The last item on our old business, and we don't have any new business, it's the last item on the agenda, is sort of become a melded issue of Odoricio and mountain bikes. I know Tammy had mentioned she wanted to provide some information on that, so I'll turn the floor over to her to discuss that topic.
Okay, yeah, so thank you. I appreciate that. So I just had a couple of quick thoughts. One was on the mountain bike group. And just thinking back to, our previous meetings and everything with them, I think, I think we need to get just some final understanding from the group on exactly what they're looking for, if they're still looking for it, and what that might look like. I know Susie Bruns, who was heading up that group way back when. We had when we had the public conversations back in 2019. I just want to sort of like understand exactly where the group is, what their goals and objectives are. I do understand from Susie they're part of the Delco composite, which is comprised of 10 or 11 different school districts. So Radnor participates as part of that in terms of their club team. So I kind of want to get, I would like to maybe even go as far to suggest that maybe we have her come back to our next meeting. I'm assuming in May, we're probably still going to be meeting this way, even though I hope we're not, but I think we are. Just so we can, just extend the olive branch there and hear what she has to say. And perhaps, she has some additional information that she can give us just in general on what the vibe is, from the mountain bike community of Radnor. And I'm not saying that she would be representative of the entire community, because I still think we need to assess that in some way. And maybe later that turns into more of a more formal public discussion as an agenda item when we can gather in public and, we can put out a notice and what have you. But I think that's important to maybe do and invite her. I can't remember if there were any other representatives as part of that group, but maybe we start with her and kind of go from there and have that dialogue. So I'm not sure what the board's thought is on that, or if you have any other suggestions.
I tend to speak first, so I'm going to lay back on this one. Anybody want to comment on Tammy's comments or any thoughts you might have on her suggestion?
No, it just that seems like a sound idea to me.
I think that sounds really reasonable, Tammy, just to kind of start the conversation back and get a real feel for where we are with this.
And seeking clarity. And is Commissioner Abel, is that his ward? He seemed to know a little more than we did, of course, about some of the people involved. Perhaps we could contact him, and if he could reach out to see his constituents to see which have some interest in participating.
That's a good idea, because we could set the meeting up as like a situation where more people can attend. You know, we're not limited to just us. I mean, we can have more folks, you know, come in, and maybe if, you know, our meeting agenda is somewhat more limited, you know, it'll allow for some of that discussion and information. I'm not sure that we would be overwhelmed with people, but we could ask him if he'd be willing to put it out for some, you know, just to see if anybody is willing to step up and talk about it. Although it does seem like at that point, it's sort of more of a community-wide ask. You know, maybe we just started out small and we emerge, you know, as, you know, again, as we get towards more, you know, in-person meetings where we can have more people on the topic.
It sounds reasonable, Tammy. I guess I'm looking at this on two levels. One is we have a specific request we had a year, at this point, about a year and a half ago, of one particular group to do something with a particular park. Commissioner Abel's placing on the agenda struck me as a little bit of a broader, to find maybe a home for a broader use of mountain biking in some park. That second type of discussion strikes me as something that's a long range type of a project there. But I certainly would be happy to hear what these folks have to say and whether there's something that can be done in the short run to perhaps match up parks and needs and desires and make that work within a community structure. The larger issue, I think that's not something we're going to solve here anytime soon, because you have to cite it and you have to get it all. There's a whole lot of work that goes into really doing something of this I've been envisioned.
I think that as long as there's an interest in the community, we should entertain something as far as gathering that portion of the community and getting them involved with what we do in the parks as well. I'm up for that.
All right.
Okay.
I don't know if that was the only thing you had on the mountain bike Odoricio, or they were two separate issues. I don't want to leave Odoricio, the larger side, either. I want to at least touch base on that and try to see if we can get a course going on that as well. But I'll turn it back to you.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it, Bill. No, I am now visioning these as two separate issues. So actually moving forward, I would probably even itemize them that way on the agenda, just so that it's clear, because I think they are two separate. But, obviously the topic of Odoricio and any potential for, long-term improvements or comprehensive improvements, that can be done there, I think it is a separate discussion. Obviously, once it gets going, it may, include mountain bike trails in some way, shape, or form in that wooded area. I don't know what that would look like. Obviously, that would just be determined as a result of understanding what public want to see in the park be changed. So my thought was, we are planning an event at Odoricio that's really just in its beginning stages in mid-July. And I was just going to suggest that, if we think we do want to start to have that discussion about what the community wants to see at Odoricio, as far as park improvements, that maybe that at that event, that could almost be like a kickoff to announce that we're doing that. Obviously, we don't meet in August, but, maybe September is then the time frame, and hopefully, everything's back in person, and, life, we kind of wake up and things are just back to the way they were. Maybe then, that's almost like a kickoff to have that September meeting be a more formal meeting, meaning the September Parks and Rec Board meeting be a more formal meeting for folks to gather in person and talk about Odoricio. And, we could do a mailing ahead of time if, we want to make sure we include all the residents, in a bubble around the park, and then obviously put it out to everybody because we want, everybody to participate. It's just a basic public message that would go out. So we can just start to hear from folks, are they interested in playground improvements? Are they interested in the comfort station improvement? Do they want to see a pavilion there? Do they want to see, some other type of structure? And then the wooded area, are folks interested in developing that into trails, mountain biking facility, or nothing? But, I think we want to get those conversations started and just start to hear that information. I don't see it being something that we would budget for into this next year, but it obviously we would want to have had this process started already, I think, to really be able to achieve that. But maybe this gives us a full year of discussion, as we know kind of takes when it comes to these projects. It's a snail. It moves very slow. And then once we get to the end of next year, next summer rather, we can figure out at that point, if there is a identified goal or plan of what we want to do, and then have a little bit more idea of how we would budget for that, meaning by way of like a dollar amount.
Tammy, I just want to jump in here real quick. I did sometime, I think, just before the COVID, talk to Commissioner Abel, and the conversation I had, and he said he was more than willing to send out letters, within the radius of that, to the community members within the radius of that park. And at that time, the RTCA wasn't done, but I told him that that's all completed and we could use that, to have the meetings and all of that. I do think that the people that I keep running into, it's like, well, where are we going with the meeting? When are we going to have the meeting? And I'm like, well, remember, it's the COVID now. It's we're in a pandemic right now, so we're just holding off. It's not that we've kicked it off the table. It's just on a hold state right now. But I think as things are starting to loosen up a little bit, there's more interest starting to come back around about what's going to happen to it. And I just have one slight question. I wish I'd asked it earlier when Claire was talking. I know trees were taken off around the basketball court. The high end of them, they had shade that would cover the court, and I know, Tammy, you're redesigning it and the basketball court and everything. Is there any idea as to planting some more trees on that hill facing the basketball court? I see the ones that are lined up on the parking lot area. I see the new trees that have been planted there, but up on the hill where that shade gave some comfort to the basketball court during the hot course of the day. Is there any chance that those are going to be replaced or anything, or do you know?
Would be. Yeah, they would be. Any of the trees that are going to come down or have come down in and around the court, or will come down as a result of the project. Because remember, we are sliding the court back slightly, right. So there are more trees that are going to be lost. Obviously, that is a plan I still will be showing you guys as soon as it's completed. It's just not yet. So for me to bring it back prematurely just doesn't make sense, or bring it to you prematurely just doesn't make sense. But replanting as a result of anything that's being taken down is definitely something that's going to happen. It just won't happen so that the tree's ultimate canopy is like close to the park, like over the basketball court itself. Because the problem that's happened with the trees that are there now is that they weep all over the court. And then what happens is, and then they provide shade, and then you get a little bit of dew on the court, right? On a right. morning, and then it turns to black mold, and you could really ice skate on it. There's several times that I've been up and around the park and I've seen that, and we've had to have obviously Public Works keep up with it and pressure wash it, during certain periods of time. So, we would just want to, make sure that any trees that are planted just are given that level of consideration with regards to long-term growth and how they might impact the court.
I appreciate that, because I'm getting a lot of questions from a lot of people that that come in the area. So I'll just frame it the way that you gave it to me.
Definitely, but there will be seating on that side as well, on the hillside side, you know.
Right, yeah.
Walk onto the court to the left. So I can definitely vision trees around that area so that they provide shade ultimately, towards, like, again, these are trees that would have to grow pretty considerably, but we just want to make sure that they're not leaning, they're not in proximity to the court in any way to where they would disrupt that long term.
Mhm. Thank you.
You're welcome. But as far as the project, I mean, or project perspective, I should say, I know that the community members that I've talked to are enthusiastic about, learning more and having discussions about renovations. And, I just want to try to anticipate that, on a timeline here when we can start to get back in person.
Sure. And I like your idea, Tammy, of trying to have a kickoff, and then maybe we are dedicating a good portion, have a thinner agenda in September, maybe dedicate some space for that. My question, Howard, for you is, would there be, given we want to have folks feel comfortable too, would there be any benefit? I know that you and Claire and I had talked when we kicked this off back in the fall of 19, I think it was, of having a small group of folks and meeting before then, just to try to, number one, let them feel invested and feel as though there's somebody listening. It would be a formal meeting, and also get some kind of an early idea where this might go, and then that can segue into a more formal process that Tammy had suggested. I'm happy to meet. It wouldn't be as necessarily a formal Parks Board meeting, but it just as someone who's on the board, just as a listening session. Is that beneficial, or do you think just waiting to the July to September
I
be better?
No, I think that would be beneficial.
Okay.
I really think that if they just have something, if they just had some idea of what was going on, and just disseminate that amongst the few, and then it get out to the rest of them, I think that would really work. I mean, it just seemed like to them in the past there was no voice for them to express their interest in what was going on. And it's just not one area. It's, the lady down there on West Wayne Avenue, I was talking to her a couple of times too. So it's a good sense of the community and the questions that they're asking. So I think it would really be beneficial. And once they see that movie night come out that Tammy's talking about, and the concert, I think they want a park where they can be very interactive with it. And the movie night, I think, would be great. And the there was a gentleman that brought up a concert of some sort. And, they look at that park, it's beautiful, and they think they can get a lot of use out of it, and this is the generation that's coming up that really want to do that. So I think it would be beneficial.
Well, maybe what I'll do offline, I'll give myself a homework assignment. I'll circulate email. I'll have everybody on the board involved. I don't want to just carve off and exclude anyone from it. But maybe we can let you try to see what we can do to set something up, and then we can have an invitation to anybody from the board who wants to be there. It would be an obligation. I'm happy to commit to doing that, even if nobody else can make it, and get that listening session going. And I really do think, I know, having been someone who was a user of Tennell for years, I felt like there was the voiceless over there too. And obviously that's been changed around. I understand that dynamic and feeling, and sometimes it's just helpful to have somebody listen. And we are earnest. It's not just to listen to have people feel good about themselves. We do have a desire to explore this and do this. We know this is a park that eventually is going to need some work. I'm happy to do. I think it might be beneficial. And certainly you're telling me it is. So let's try to put that together.
Okay. Here to help, whatever.
Great. I'll circulate an email probably over the weekend and get the ball rolling on that issue as well.
Okay.
Anyone else on Otoricio or mountain biking? Okay. We don't have anything on new business.
Bill, can I actually raise just a
Absolutely.
question? Sorry.
No, I was going to go ahead.
So, and I say this because I'm concerned, we have seen a rise in cases of COVID at the school. For people who have students in the school, you probably got an email from Dr. Batchelor reminding you that anytime, especially at the high school, that we have a student diagnosed with COVID, That means probably 20 to 30 students who sit near them or interact with them in a building have to quarantine until they test positive or have sat out that quarantine period. And so it's really easy as the spring comes along to, as a number of our community members are vaccinated, for people to kind of forget that. My impression is still, though, that we still have mask mandates in this area. And I was walking by Sulpizio the other night, and there was a group of adults in there playing basketball. And there's a big sign that says masks are mandatory at all times. And not a single person playing basketball was wearing one. And look, they're adults. I get it. A lot of adults decide to take those risks. I don't. I wear my mask when I'm inside. But what bothers me is that Sulpizio is not used just by adults in the community. So even if all of them agree to that, it's not a building that's necessarily super well ventilated. And I have concerns that we have young people who use that building, and that what those adults don't realize is that they may be exposing young people who use the building in close proximity to them to COVID. So I just would ask, maybe Tammy, you mentioned that you can reach out to groups that have permits to use our space. If maybe you would remind them, unless that rule has changed, that the mask mandate unfortunately still applies when you're playing.
Oh,
Maybe I'm wrong, but the sign says mandatory at all times.
it does. And sadly, with Radnor Activity Center, they're reminded constantly.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, that's information. and
I believe you. It's
policies
not a
that go out
judgment on you.
constantly.
I
No,
promise.
it's super frustrating to hear, given the sensitivity, but it's certainly something we'll give another
I was
reminder
upset
to.
enough. I almost opened the doors and went in and said something. And then I remembered,
Your
like,
life in your
Howard,
hands.
you know what? I sit on Parks and Rec. It's not my place to enforce all the ordinances. But it's upsetting to me. Genuinely, look, if adults want to go out and take those risks, that's on them. And if they all as a group have agreed they're not going to wear their masks to play basketball, that's on them. But when they do it in a space that children use and that other people may not realize has been used by people who were being less cautious, and it, puts our students at risk of, if nothing else, missing school, right? I mean, if your high school kid is out for, a week because or has to go to school virtually, which a lot of them don't want to have to do because they were exposed, it's a shame when they were behaving and doing what they were supposed to do. All of our students, when they play sports, have to wear masks.
Right.
It doesn't look comfortable. I get that. But I think it's a shame when the adults don't set the right tone and follow the rules as well. So it was really disappointing to me.
And
Tammy,
if you ever see that happen, please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly, because that's something I would want to get on
At
right away.
8:40 at night.
I'll take it. You guys know
Okay.
me. I'm,
yeah.
I'm always
The-
plugged in.
Okay.
Tammy, yeah, is that that's a health and safety concern. Is that a call to 911? Because it is private. I don't know the
It's not because
protocol,
our,
and I don't want to have people arrested, but I also, not arrested, but fined, or I don't want to send the police there, but at the same time, like, it's not fair to somebody else too.
no, it's not something I would task our police department with, but it's certainly
Yeah.
something that I would welcome a
Mhm.
phone call on, so that I could reach out to the leader, or I would have Heather or Tracy reach out to the
Okay.
leader and call them and contact them and say, look, your group was just spied on, and I don't mean that in an adverse way, but I just mean like they were seen not wearing their masks. You need to get them on. It's the policy. And,
All right.
and those groups know that their usage is subject to that. So if they
Okay,
don't
so
follow the rules,
there
there's
is a
repercussion.
repercussion part.
Mhm.
Good.
That was,
There is.
I phrased the question wrong. That's the best repercussion, that they would lose
Yes,
access and the
absolutely.
ability. Okay, thank you.
So now they
Quick-
can be warned. I walk the properties at night because I sit on facilities. And I always have my camera out. Poor Bill Dolan, I text him with pictures of the high school property and middle school property all the time.
I will say our kids have done a great job with it. And when I
They
say
they
that,
are really
I mean,
working very
I mean
hard.
the students, I mean the kids in programs. I mean, my son's 13, he plays middle school baseball. He wears his mask all day at school. He wears it an entire day at middle school, and then in his baseball, he pitched his first middle school game actually on Tuesday in a mask. So, I mean, I don't really have a lot of sympathy for the groups that would choose to do that when they know that there's a policy in place.
Tammy, is there anything that would help as far as going down there and actually doing what Sarah would want to do, where I would actually walk in the building and sort of like monitor it and at least take everybody's temperature or something? Is there anything I could do to help out?
Well, the leader of that group, well, let me rephrase this. I don't know what group you're referring to. I'm assuming it's
I
our
don't
men's
either.
basketball program.
That's what I'm assuming too,
It was
Sarah.
but we have other adults that use the facility. So
Okay,
anyways, they have temperature checks during their usage. The leader of the group is somebody who
okay,
is to take temperature checks and supposed to monitor and make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to.
okay.
So, I mean, you're more than welcome to go and do that and help reinforce. You know, I'm all about being a citizen's police person.
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
a strong advocate out there in my own.
My
but-
husband was with me or I would have
Badges.
gone in. My husband's like, no, you are not just barging in there.
no, I think that's that you've got a valid point there. You know, we're all trying to do the right thing so that we can get away from the mask at some point. But if you still have these little things happening in the corner out of sight, then it's going to take us longer. And I'm just willing to help out wherever I can, if it means actually going down there and opening the door and saying, yelling at somebody. If it's the men's basketball,
Brave.
because one day I hope to be able to get back out there on the court. If it's those guys, it just irks me. That's all.
It does me as well. And it'd be something I will be addressing as soon as we finish up here.
Okay.
Thanks, Tammy.
Thank you,
You're
Sarah.
welcome.
Anyone else with any other topics they want to raise before we close up shop? Yes, Claire.
I just had a quick question. I had someone ask me how to get onto our meeting for public comment. Like how we used to have it in person. We just have public comment at the end. Is there a procedure or a way?
You're on mute, Ken.
Tammy, you're on mute.
Sorry. So there is. I mean, they should send an email ahead of the meeting just to let us know that they want to be on or they want to participate. This particular meeting tonight isn't a panelist meeting, where it was a little different, where they could get the link ahead of time and jump in. That's because of, I think the Planning Commission was meeting tonight as well, and they're on the link, and we got our own just private link to be on.
Okay.
We
So
didn't.
we're just being taped right now, so people
We
can
are.
listen to it.
We're being recorded and we're also live, so we're capable of being viewed as well through the YouTube.
Okay. So, all right. So if somebody wanted to add a public comment, is it too late for this meeting?
Not at all. We haven't adjourned yet, so we can take a public comment.
Oh, okay. Oh, I don't have.
We need to forward that person the link. I guess,
Yeah,
Claire, if you have the link from the meeting, that you could forward it to
Send
them.
them the link and they can jump
right
in.
now. Like right now.
You can, yeah.
Okay. Let me try. All right. Okay. Is everyone waiting too long? All right. Hold on. And I'll try to get her.
While Claire's doing that, if anybody else had anything they wanted to raise, feel free to do so.
All right. Hold on.
Oh, and I just want to say real quick, Tammy, I don't get a chance to make it to a lot of the events that you hold, but I'm just getting a lot of high praises for what you guys are doing. And you're doing a fantastic job. And I wanted to tell you that, but I would always get calls when someone would tell me that. I wanted to get it to you right away so I could get it off me. But since I've got you now face to face, you and your group down there are doing a fantastic job. And from everybody I'm talking to, they just love it. They just love the activities that you brought to the township, and you're making it active enough for our young people and enough for them to stay out of a lot of crazy situations. I'll just put it that way. They're not getting as much into mischief because of some of the things that you've done. So kudos to you and your group.
No, thank you. I'll definitely be passing
Great.
along all of that to Heather and Tracy and Lizette as well. Because believe me, I mean, we're a small team, but they're very mighty. And, they spend a lot of time and put a lot of efforts into everything. And, we're very meticulous on how we run stuff. So it's real important to hear that, and it feels good. Thank you.
Right here for a moment.
Okay, I just sent it to her and she said she would get on it. If you guys can hold on for 1 second.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
While we're looking, Tammy, and it's kind of a Parks and Rec, but kind of not. Kind of is. So it looks like we're having the Garrett Hill 4th of July parade this year. That's your understanding?
We are.
Okay.
I had a call with Bree Trudy about a month ago, and she was interested in, getting our perspective on what we thought, and we were very supportive. We feel like the parade can definitely happen in a safe way with, obviously health and safety guidelines in place that folks would follow. So they felt pretty confident that they could do the parade and, in a way that keeps folks pretty spread out and, in separate vehicles and stuff like that. But the park celebration, unfortunately, just to open up the park, carte blanche in a way to just invite everybody and anybody, was something we kind of both talked about and just felt right now is just not good timing. And I think even if we were able to make that decision and say, the end of May or June, it's just not enough time for them to plan then at that point. So I think there was consensus on their committee to not move forward with the park celebration. So
it'll just be a parade. Okay.
Parade. So when I have more details, I'll share. I understand also Memorial Day Parade Committee is in the works too. They are planning to have the Memorial Day Parade. And they're in the planning stages right now. So once that information's available, I'll share it as well.
I think it's going to feature the Radnor High School band.
Right.
And then Veterans and First Responders Park. Is that sorry, did you talk about that earlier? I had my second COVID shot on Tuesday, so I barely know today is Thursday.
We're going to be meeting again. We're going to try and get together with some designers and go through a list of objectives and kind of screen design firms that we think might be able to bring the concept plan into play. So the veterans group, the American Legion representatives that we've been meeting with would be taking part in those meetings as well. I think we have another meeting set for next Thursday to just keep the ball rolling.
That's great. No, it is moving along, and that's great.
All right. So I think Cameron Azzarano is on. Can somebody see her?
Yes. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi there.
Long time no see.
I know, right? I don't know if you're thrilled to see me, but I'm here. I was not really navigating. I couldn't find the link exactly on the website, so hopefully I'll be better versed. Is this the open?
I was just going to say the floor. Yes, we are open for public participation, and we're welcome. Whatever it is you have for us tonight.
Okay, sounds good. I guess I'll just get right to it and say it was 2 weeks ago, approximately, that I became aware of the Fenimore Woods project or improvement plan. I think for me, it's very difficult to call it that because what I have gained from my understanding and reviewing the plans is it's basically more of a reconstruction plan of the existing park. I'm just, quite frankly, completely opposed to the removal of healthy trees. I think that for me, there's so few opportunities for young families or whomever to be able to stroll through a wooded area like Fenimore. I've been doing it myself for longer than I probably care to admit, but I was a college student at Eastern back in the day and have raised our 3 children here. We've been Radnor residents for over 20 years. So I also work at Eastern University. So for me, you know, I could be in Fenimore on, you know, a weekly basis, multiple times in a week. So I think my biggest concern is, having been in the park just a couple of days ago and looking around, just finding it very hard to believe that there weren't other plan options that could have been looked at and contemplated to achieve the needs. I think the needs and the desires in terms of bathrooms and a new pavilion and an improved children's park are all good things, and those I would consider improvements. I don't consider what the township is planning to do to Fenimore Woods appropriate and right. I think that it's wrong. I think in this day and age, considering the talk about our climate and our earth and our nature, we, quite frankly, with a lot that has gone down in the township in recent years, it doesn't really look like we value and appreciate our canopy, in particular, if we were to move forward with the plans as set forth. I know Morris Road, I just drove on that recently because somebody brought it to my attention that there was a project there. I'll admit, I was kind of a little bit shocked. I think the 476 interchange issue, which I'm aware that there's, you know, things to that are not so great, but for the common person driving by, it looks like Radnor clear cut. All of the red buds that used to line Route 30 next to the high school on your way to Radnor Chester Road are now gone. And I know we also had the project down in town. So long story short, I am a nature lover. I also am rational about trees that pose threats and need to be removed. But I think that this project goes way beyond what makes any sense. There's, according to the Shade Tree Report in July 2020, there's 143 trees set to be removed. And of that 143 trees, 26 of them are deemed in decline, a risk, or in defect. So in essence, we're looking at removing 117 mature trees of varying ages and species. That's my number one concern. My secondary concern is that for 2 weeks, I have randomly spoken to people, whether they're people I know, people I've come across in the park, or, you know, literally anywhere that I've been where I'm coming into interactions with Radnor residents. I've asked the question, are you aware of the Fenimore Woods project? And I have not come across one person that knows. I think people are aware, some people are aware that there's a project. For example, neighbor across the street on Paul Road is aware of a project. There's a neighbor directly on Fenimore Lane that is aware of a project, but do not know the magnitude and extent of what has been proposed. And so that's extremely concerning to me. And Tammy's been phenomenal. So I just want to say that I've very much appreciated her attentiveness. From the very first meeting that we had with Marcus from Eastern over at Fenimore to a follow-up meeting and then another email even today. So I appreciate the response. I just, you know, I'm kind of ready to do what I can to see what the neighbors really do think about the removal of the woods. Because when I say woods, I mean the pavilion wooded area and then the lower wooded area, which I guess that there's some changes still to be made. So that's what I had to share.
Well,
Thanks. Just, yeah, sorry.
I'll just make a couple general comments and I'll pass it to you. And if Tammy has any specifics on that, just thank you for your comments and thanks for going through the trouble of linking in with us here tonight. I know as to the Fenimore Woods project, I know that at least this board, I know we had probably at least half a dozen meetings, and as long as I've been on the board, which I think is about 5 years now, this has been a project that we've had a number of times, and there's been various generations of it, various concerns and issues that we've had evolve through time. And I know that's going up to the Board of Commissioners as well. So I'm sorry that folks haven't been online with that. In terms of the trees in general, I know each of our meetings, we have a report from our Shade Tree Committee, which is Claire each time. And we've talked about all of those issues that you've spoken about. And there are a number of concerns. There have been issues, and it's not simply a matter of us looking to clear cut or take canopy down as a township. Certainly this board doesn't make those decisions anyway, but we do constantly bring those to the fore and take that into consideration, because we're all in the same boat as you. We love our trees. We want them to stay as much as practical. Commissioner Farhi, I know you want to hop in. I did speak over you. I just want to just that.
No. I apologize for it.
No
Mr.
problem.
President, it is your committee.
It's not.
So I
ahead.
would like to say, I don't know if we spoke, did we speak on the phone? Okay, so, okay, so this has been vetted through, and sometimes the Board of Commissioners meetings, they can be long and drawn out. This has been, we've discussed this multiple times at those meetings. I don't have the dates on when these topics have gone up, but this is a big project. I don't know the scope and the amount, but it is probably several hundred thousands on up. Am I correct, Tammy? So it is.
Well, the project in total is about 1.6 million, 1.7 million.
So that is a large part of our, it is a very significant part of our budget. Our budget's around $40 million, 45 million, depending on how taxes line up. So it is definitely something that is not overlooked. Getting back to Bill's point, we don't take trees lightly in this township. We have a shade tree, and you're not the only one that is upset for what happened on the clear cutting at the 476. If you go to the corner of 320 and Conestoga, they have to take down some mature trees, about 30 of them that are sick and dying. Go on Lancaster Avenue. I would let Director Dunn speak about those trees by the high school, but yeah, I see kids running on them, and some of these trees, they may be mature, they may even be heritage trees, but they also may be invasive trees as well. And some of those Norway maples, they're just not good trees. Finally, the best thing, and I don't know, how Commissioner Booker sends his updates, if he has a newsletter or whatnot. I put things on my newsletter that are basically centric to Ward 7, my ward. My parks would be Emlyn, Tinnell, and Clemacrone. There's another one, Unkerford. I should say this at a Parks and Rec meeting. I don't think I've ever stepped foot in it. When I say I don't think so, I haven't. Don't tell anybody. But
It takes you about 3 steps to get through it, though.
Yes, but that is something that, that if he doesn't do it, I would think that it's up to as I've spoken about this before, we spoke about the Willows. It'd be maybe something Commissioner Abel would want to champion about dogs at the Willows. If it's Harford Park or Fenimore, that's something that Commissioner Booker should want to, because those are his neighbors. Those are the people that use it more, and it's in their ward. So I don't want to speak for him on if and how he's disseminated it, but I will say that this is a big project, and we have, at least on the board's end, we have brought it up to the board multiple times. It's just, unfortunately, if you don't watch the meetings, and the individual commissioner puts it out or doesn't put it out, or you don't get the newsletter, you may not know. And it's hard when it comes to the dissemination to make sure everybody gets this information. So not a great answer, but it's really, again, what I can offer, coming from a board perspective.
Can I comment again? Am I allowed to comment?
I mean, yeah, I don't,
I spoke to Rich. I've spoken to him twice. I just think that, considering the timing of this, there's a significant question. Why are we doing this right now? And I don't have any case to say that the process wasn't fulfilled. Tammy shared that with me, and I have every reason to believe that fully and completely. That doesn't change the fact that the majority of the people that I have spoken with do not know about this project. So we can say we did it, we can say the information's out there, but at the end of the day, I spoke with the neighbor who drives on Paul Road every single day, and he was horrified when I told him the woods you look at when you drive by will be gone. And so I just think that it's again, I understand the needs, the bathrooms, the pavilion, the new children's park, changing the parking, moving it so that it's safer. I suppose it's been there for a super long time. I don't know that we've had issue or there would be another way to make the current location of the playground more protected. I just think some of the answers that I've heard in terms of the trees being in decline, well, we know the report, it says on 26 of them. So let's take the 26 trees down and let's leave the ones that are healthy and well. It doesn't make sense. I think the plan that Gilmore and Associates puts out, and quite frankly, if you're not kind of savvy in reading those plans, can be deceptive. The plot plan where they show the removal of the trees appear to be these little tiny black circles with a big dark X, black X. In the actual plan itself, where the replacement trees are, you see big giant blue circles and big red circles. And so it gives the illusion of what's being cut down and what's being replaced, when in fact you're taking 30-inch heritage trees down and you're planting a sapling that's 2.5 inches wide that in all of our lifetimes we will never see be a canopy tree. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities for the board to stop, and it's kind of my intent is to try to say, can we not come up with a plan that doesn't take away the identity, the character, and quite frankly, it's an ecosystem. So we're just choosing, I don't know if anybody's a bird nerd like I am, but the number of species of birds that go through Fenimore, in particular, there's scarlet tanagers right now, if you want to go look at them. So I just think it would be important to take another thought.
I've never seen a cedar waxwing, but I did see it at the stream. So yeah, no, that stuff's important. I would say bring this up at a Board of Commissioners meeting, and we can and bring it up with Commissioner Booker and make this public comment. You'll have 5 minutes to speak. They're pretty. We're pretty diligent on that at the meeting, and just make mention of it, and we can go from there.
Thank you.
That was, can I actually ask Bill Remfrey, my impression is that once this group has sent something to the Board of Commissioners and they voted on it, it's really the commissioners' control. And I don't think I was around when this got passed up. It's been so long in the making. I don't, at some point I've probably seen the plans, but I'm in Ward 6-2 and I don't remember seeing them. And I thank you, Cameron, for raising. I don't think I realized that many trees that were healthy were coming down. But once it's gone to the Board of Commissioners, it's really beyond our authority.
Yeah,
to the extent we have much.
Yeah, I was gonna say, to the extent we have authority, we have advisory authority, and this came, several generations of the plans came before us. There was public comment, and we had a great deal of hashing back and forth with public comment and among the board, and made various recommendations at each stage of that process. It then went, and as I understood, was approved. The final version that we saw was approved, and that's the plan's been being put into action over the last 12 months or so, if not a little bit longer than that. So we don't have, to the extent we have power, it's an issue which is now in the Board of Commissioners' hands, and they're the only ones that really could do anything to alter that plan at this point in time. If they chose to do that, then they might ask us for our opinion on an alteration. But at this point, we're happy to entertain public comment on it. We're happy to listen to folks, but it's a resolution and a project that's now in the Board of Commissioners' hands.
Yeah. So again, just piggybacking on what they're saying, bring it up to the Board of Commissioners, or talk to Tammy and see if the board has an appetite. John Hosbeck is our arborist. She can reach out to him, as well as Steve Norsini, who is our our engineer, and they can kind of gauge a feel and see if this is something that we should revisit again. I don't want, I don't want to be, I can't speak for the board. I am one person, I am one vote. This is already going forward. That doesn't mean that we don't change things, but it would have to be the consensus of the board, either brought by you as citizen, but I think that the best chain would be to talk to Tammy and those three people and see if there are things that we can change and just kind of go from there. But that's kind of what I would say to do.
That sounds good. And that's what Rich relayed to me as well. And I think, just getting on these meetings, I was on the Board of Commissioners meeting. Was it last night or the night before? I can't even remember. But again, I was able to watch it, but I wasn't sure how people were actively participating. So I'll figure that out for the next time. Thank you very much. So I
Well,
appreciate it.
thank you very much for taking the time and for sharing your thoughts. Thank you very much. Anything else from this board? All right, I guess we'll take the proverbial motion to adjourn. And a second I saw in there. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thanks, everybody. I know we went a little bit long tonight. I'll be hitting you with some emails as I promised. And thanks again for all the input and the patience tonight. And hopefully we'll all get some weather to get outside in the parks we talk about so much. So have a good night.
Thanks,
folks.
everybody.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Bill.